I hadn't been back to my old high school in over 15 years. So when I got the invitation for a class reunion, I hesitated. Part of me was curious. Part of me wasn't sure I wanted to revisit the past. But eventually, nostalgia won, and I found myself pulling into the cracked parking lot one late autumn evening. The building looked almost exactly the same. The paint on the bricks had faded, the glass doors bore scratches from years of use, and the big metal letters spelling out the school's name were still half broken. Inside, the gym smelled like dust and cleaning solution. The lights overhead buzzed with that faint electrical hum I'd always hated during basketball practice. Folding tables lined the edges of the room, covered in cheap food trays and plastic cups of punch. And scattered around were the faces of people I once saw every day. For the first hour, it was just laughter, awkward hugs, and half-remembered stories. It was fun, in a strange way, to see how time had reshaped everyone. But somewhere between conversations, I noticed him. In the far corner of the gym, near the bleachers, a man was standing perfectly still. He wasn't talking, wasn't eating, wasn't moving. Just standing with his hands at his sides, watching. At first, I thought maybe he was just shy, or maybe someone's spouse who didn't know anyone here. But every time I glanced over, he hadn't shifted at all. His eyes, though I couldn't quite make out their color, were locked on me. I finally asked one of my old friends, "Hey, do you know that guy over there?" He followed my gaze, frowned, then shook his head. "There's no one there, man." When I looked back, the corner was empty. I laughed nervously, brushing it off, but the unease stayed with me. Later that night, as the crowd began thinning and the music quieted, I caught sight of him again. This time, he wasn't across the gym. He was standing halfway to me, closer now, almost blending with the group. No one else seemed to notice. His face was pale, expression blank, like a photograph drained of color. I turned away to grab another drink, and when I looked back on, again, the air in the gym felt heavier after that, like the walls themselves were pressing in. The final straw came when the lights flickered. For a split second, every shadow stretched unnaturally long across the floor, and in that flicker, I saw him. Right behind me. I spun around so fast my cup spilled, but there was nothing. Just empty space. The reunion ended shortly after, but I left early, my chest tight with dread. Months later, I learned that the gym had once been used as an evacuation center during a massive fire decades ago. Several people had died inside. I don't know who I saw that night, but I know this, he wasn't one of us. It had been years since I'd seen my old college friends. Life had scattered us into different cities and different careers, but when Ryan sent out a group message suggesting a reunion, we all jumped at the chance. His idea was simple: rent a cabin deep in the woods, no phones, no distractions. Just us, food, drinks, and old memories. The drive itself already felt strange. The road narrowed the further we went, the trees crowding in, branches scraping against the car as if nature itself wanted to keep us out. By the time we reached the cabin, the sun was dipping low, painting the forest in a deep orange glow. The cabin looked like something from a postcard log walls, a wide porch, smoke curling from the chimney. Inside it was warm and inviting, the fireplace crackling, the smell of pine and old wood filling the air. That first evening was everything we wanted. We grilled food, told jokes that only made sense to us, and laughed until we couldn't breathe. For a few precious hours, it felt like we were back in college, young and careless. But then the storm came. It started with the wind, a long, low howl through the trees that made the cabin creak. The rain followed, pounding the roof and rattling the windows. And then, the lights went out. At first, we laughed it off, lit a few candles, and kept the party going. But the mood shifted when we heard it. Footsteps. At first faint, crunching softly against the wet ground outside. Then clearer, closer. They circled the cabin once, then again. Each step deliberate, unhurried, We froze, straining to listen. The storm howled, the candles flickered, and the footsteps stopped right outside the porch. The front door groaned under a sudden weight, like someone pressing against it. The knob trembled just slightly, turning half an inch before jerking back. Ryan whispered, "It's probably just the wind." But we all knew better. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. And then tap, 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 at the window. A pale handprint smeared against the glass. We all screamed, backing away, but when the flashlight beam hit it, the window was empty. Then another handprint, this time at the back of the cabin. Then another at the side. Soon the sound was everywhere. Fingers tapping against glass, against wood, circling us, faster and faster. But no faces, no figures. Just the sound and the marks they left behind. For hours it went on. We huddled in the middle of the cabin, waiting, whispering, praying for it to stop. And then silence. When morning came, we stumbled outside, exhausted. The ground was untouched, no footprints, no mud, nothing at all. But when we looked back, our blood ran cold. Every single window was fogged with handprints, dozens of them. Some so high up the glass, no human could have reached them. We left that morning, and none of us ever spoke about it again. The group chat went silent. No one suggested another reunion, and every so often, I wonder, if we hadn't left when we did, would we still be in that cabin?
It all started with a letter. The envelope was old, slightly yellowed, the handwriting delicate, almost like my grandmother's. Inside was an invitation, a family reunion at the old farmhouse. But here's the problem. My grandmother passed away nearly 10 years ago, and the farmhouse had been abandoned ever since. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe a distant cousin playing a joke. But the more I stared at the letter, the more uneasy I felt. The handwriting was too familiar. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. When I pulled up that evening, the farmhouse wasn't dark and empty like I expected. Instead, it glowed. Warm light spilled through the windows. Faint music drifted through the night air, and laughter echoed from inside. For a moment, I almost believed it. Inside, the house was alive. People filled the rooms, smiling, laughing, welcoming me by name. They hugged me, asked how I'd been, offered me food from a table that looked impossibly full. It felt like stepping back in time, but something was wrong. I didn't recognize anyone, not one face. They spoke to me as though we'd known each other forever. Their voices were warm, but their smiles never changed. Wide, fixed, as if painted on. I tried to brush it off, but the longer I stayed, the heavier the air felt. Every corner seemed darker than it should have been, and every time I looked away, I swore I caught movement in the shadows, figures, just out of focus. At one point, I asked softly, "Who are you all, really?" The room fell quiet. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, unblinking. Finally, one of them whispered, "We've always been here." That was enough. I excused myself, stepped outside, and called my mom. "Why didn't you tell me about the reunion?" I asked, my voice shaking. There was a pause on the line. Then she said, "What reunion, honey? That house has been empty for years." My hand went cold. Slowly, I turned back toward the farmhouse. The windows were dark now. No music, no laughter, just silence. And yet, as the moon slipped from behind the clouds, I saw them. Dozens of shadowy figures standing in the windows. Perfectly still, perfectly silent, watching me. I ran to my car and didn't look back until I was halfway down the road. To this day, I don't know who or what Ty saw that night. But sometimes, when the lights in my apartment flicker, I feel it again. That heavy air. That silence. And in the corner of my eye, the faint outline of someone still watching.